Hello, this is Will Sargent from Echo and the Bunnymen. If you are a fan of UFC, you need to listen to the podcast called Hold On, I'm Talking, Brother. It's chat all about UFC hard knocks, getting the boot in and that.
Fight! 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 Fight!
Hello, and welcome back to Hold On, I'm Talking, Brother. My name is Joe Greenwood, and you are listening to our preview of UFC 287, which is headlined by Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya 2, with a co-main event of Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal, live from Miami, Florida, this Saturday. As per usual, I'm joined by my regular co-host, Tom Ballerman. Tom, I've got to ask you the big question from this past weekend. Did you or did you not enjoy WrestleMania?
Very pertinent question, Joe, given the recent news. Two have become one. The UFC and WWE are together, united. Partnerships and collaborations will continue, according to the UFC. I know we're going to get into that after we break down the main card here. So I won't say too much now, but I can tell you I did not watch WrestleMania.
Damn. It's a shame, Tom. It was two pretty good shows. But we can get into the business of that later. First, listeners, we are actually going to talk about UFC 287. Get hyped! Because this card, I'm going to say it, Tom, stonking. 8 out of 10 for me in terms of excitement of the actual matchups. How do you like them apples?
I like that you like it, Joe. That's great. Don't have to rise you up and tease you with narrative to seduce you into it being excited.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear what's really got you ticking, because it's bubbling away for me. It's a bit early in the week. I'm thinking 6.5, 7 out of 10.
Damn. Tom is a grower, not a shower, as you can tell by his ratings there. But listeners, we're going to go into it. We're going to preview the main card here, making predictions for each of the main card fights. I'm going to pick who we think will win, and if we get that correct, that'll be 1 point. And if we get the method correct as well, that's 2. 10 points on offer. Tom is the defending champion, but I am the people's champion, as I did correctly predict Leon Edwards to win by decision last time out. Tom, you are a defending champion. And you know who else is a defending champion? Somehow is Alex Pereira, who last November, which is not long ago, beat Israel Adesanya by knockout in Madison Square Garden to claim the middleweight title and continue to be a scourge on Adesanya's career and life, and continues their rivalry over from kickboxing. Now, do you consider this a part of like a quadrilogy rather than, a sequel?
I do, Joe. I do. And I can't help but feel like the first 2 fights played a role in how the third fight ultimately played out, because it was a similar story. Adesanya led the dance, was favoured by those judging and scoring until Poatan came in and got that big head of his square onto Adesanya's and unleashed some hooks. Changed the fight, as he has done in the past. So absolutely, this is fight number 4. It's 3-0 right now, Joe. But despite that, Adesanya comes in as favourite. Why is that?
I think it's the schedule he had before the Pereira fight, and the fact that he has pretty much dominated everyone he's faced who is actually a middleweight and not a heavyweight disguised as a middleweight. Case in point, Alex Pereira, Jan Blachowicz at light heavyweight as well. I think there is something to that can be discussed further. But to go back to like an analogy here, is just like, I think we can admit that maybe Adesanya is a more well-rounded mixed martial arts fighter, or we have been shown to be a more well-rounded mixed martial arts fighter. He's got every tool you would probably want. He's got a beautiful specialised skill in kickboxing. And then Pereira turns up, big meaty left hook, down you go, pal. There's a similar link if we're going to cross sports like we have with kickboxing to MMA. between, I think, Adesanya, the Man City to Pereira's Tottenham, the turning up to ruin their day, despite, no matter how bad they are. I don't know. And also, can I ask you this, Tom? Do you actually consider this to be a rivalry? Like, he's 3-0 up in the rivalry. It's not really that close on the score.
Joe, that's what I'm saying. Like, let's flip this narrative that you presented to me. Pereira's beat the guy 3 times. He vanquished him from kickboxing, him, sent him packing, went off to another sport, heard this boy chatting some nonsense, but he got lucky a couple of times. Adesanya, to quote him, he said that Pereira will be that old man down the pub looking at Adesanya on the TV saying, "Oh yeah, I beat him once. I did, kids. I beat him." Pereira, okay, I'll just come change over the sport. Wrestling, what's that? No bother. Give me knock out this fool. A couple of fights later, inevitably matched up with Adesanya. They meet again, and he dusts him off, packs him away, and somehow he's got to fight him again for a 4th time. Let the man move on.
I know. Now here's. Can I just... Someone really nailed this, and it's Chuck Mendenhall, the MMA journalist, writer, broadcaster, who said, maybe Adesanya's not the main character of this story, and that really Pereira is the main character. And when he said that, it was just like really illuminated something to me of like, we've been sold Adesanya for a long time. We've been sold on this superstar persona, glitzy entrances, anime references, he's a bit more of like a youngster, and then just this that dark shadowy corner with Pereira with his cold glare, even with like a joyous moment. He's got a belt wrapped around his waist, and he's like, it looks like he's just thinking about atrocities that he's seen and experienced. He's the main character at this point in time. He is 3-0 up. It doesn't matter how popular Adesanya is, Pereira is the main character, and if he beats Adesanya again, there is no rivalry, as Cormier said after he lost to Jones.
Yeah, iconic words. Of course, Cormier did find a way to reinvent himself, pile on a load of weight, and go up a division. Unfortunately, I think if Adesanya were to do that here, Joe, you know what would happen? Pereira would follow him up and finish him one more time. It's truly amazing. It's been great to have Pereira in the UFC, and it was really just incredible the fashion in which he finished him in the 5th round last time out back in November. Pretty quick turnaround since then. Do you think either of them will have added a couple of extra wrinkles? What game plans do you expect them to come with? Any changes you can see?
I mean, the wrinkles I'm thinking of is the stress for Pereira from cutting weight again, because he's already cutting weight. Like, he was cutting weight 2 weeks ago. He is ginormous, and win or lose, I think this is his last fight at middleweight. I don't think he's going to be making this cut again. Hamzat Chimaev and Robert Whittaker, I'll see you later, pal. Like, he's not fighting them fools. I think if we're looking at wrinkles, I would say the grappling will be quite an interesting position, because I think Adesanya struck on something in that fight that I think he could probably lean on again to tire Pereira out. Now, obviously, he did tire him out in that fight anyway, and it didn't matter in the end because Pereira charged forward and realised he was losing and had to get the finish, and did so. But it's the body lock that really interests me with Adesanya, because it takes Pereira out of range. He can't land on him from there, and Adesanya can wear on him, drag him down. And you know what, man? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Adesanya, if he gets him in that position again, like he did in the first fight, off a body lock and a throw, gets to the back. If he doesn't just attack a sub, get Pereira moving, get his hands fighting, getting into a hand fight battle in like a sub attack, and actually a bit more ferocious ground and pound. Like, I would expect Adesanya to start to add that in if he gets into those positions.
Well, something that, stood out to me when they did have that exchange on the mat, I think it was the 3rd round in the first fight, is Adesanya did look a lot more accomplished in those positions.
For sure.
Nice wrist control. Pereira, wasn't able to post up. Adesanya was controlling that all the time. He was wary of what to look out for. And Pereira actually was making a few mistakes. He was losing out in positions. And I think it did tire him. So ultimately, you've got to look at Adesanya and think he's going to want to implement more grappling, more wrestling. However, though it has only been 6 months, that's 6 months in Danbury, Connecticut with Glover Teixeira teaching you all he knows. One of the great wrestlers who transitioned to MMA, or jiu-jitsu practitioners, shall we say.
Well, who took to wrestling later on in his career and made it his main game plan and had a superb ground game, like heavy ground game.
You've got to imagine that Pereira's been putting in that work, because ultimately, what was he vulnerable to in that first fight? Yes, Adesanya, we know he's a fantastic switch hitter, that he can escape out the corner when you press forwards. He's very evasive. He's very good at controlling the distance. He's very good at measuring. However, ultimately, Pereira was able to weather that, and Adesanya couldn't hit him with enough to keep him off him. Outside of that first round, where Adesanya finished with a nice combination late in that first round, I think what we saw is Pereira starting to walk Adesanya down. Yeah. So you move on to what the next possible threat could be. Yeah, Pereira struggled in the wrestling exchange. And I think surely he's going to be wise to the fact that that could be an element of Adesanya's game. Yeah,
it's interesting that that seems to be like, I don't know, it seems to be the main thing that people are talking about of like, what can Adesanya add or change? The other thing I would suggest that he changed is don't concede that much ground to him. You saw it in that fight when he pressed forward. Pereira didn't really have that much for him. You know, he was causing him issues, and I loved the combo that Adesanya landed, which was the 1-2, but it was a delayed 1-2. He'd throw out the jab, and he'd leave the jab hand out there to either post off of or to obscure Pereira's vision, and he'd throw in the right hand behind it. And that's what caught him at the end of the first, rocked him slightly, left hook coming. And when he landed that left hook, if you see there's a reverse angle, the right hand's coming back immediately. Like he was about to finish him. And Pereira was very lucky with that, the timing of it. And Adesanya was unlucky due to the finish of that. But he kept landing it. Delayed 1-2, delayed 1-2. And there was a really nice change-up as well, where he threw the straight, not to the head, but to the body later in the fight as well, just to like continue to sap at Pereira's stamina. So I'm expecting Adesanya to do the same thing. He did it in kickboxing as well, where he threw out the delayed 1-2, obscure the vision. Pereira has to move his hands to clear it out of the way, and then see what's happening, and then the right hand coming down it. Also, Adesanya did as well. Through the left hand jab, it was mostly from orthodox, leave the hand out there, and would actually move his jab hand back down and pull one of Pereira's hands out the way to clear the path for the right hand. And I'm wondering if he's going to implement that still, or maybe he'll make it a 3-shot combo from there. Maybe he could throw a high kick from there as well. Maybe that delayed 1-2 is purely a setup for the high kick. Maybe he could throw a left hook off of that as well.
Well, it's interesting Sorry, Joe.
Go on.
Cut you off there. No, it's interesting that you highlighted Adesanya kind of with the hand fighting with Pereira. Now, yeah, that was enabling him to get off some shots. We know he likes to throw that right hand kind of to Pereira's left ear, just again and again and again. That's the big shot. But in fighting the hands, grabbing at Pereira's left hand specifically to land his own shots, that ultimately takes a little bit away from his defense. It leaves a bit of vulnerability there if you're reaching out for that. Then your hands are not up by protecting yourself.
Yeah,
and I think that was a big element in the combination that actually we saw Pereira capitalize on and finishing Adesanya. I think Adesanya was getting a little bit too cute. So whilst you say yes, marching forward and kind of putting Pereira a bit more on the back feet, I think Adesanya is going to be extremely wary of doing that. I think he's because he's such a cerebral, intelligent fighter. He's just not comfortable fighting like that.
No.
And when you've been knocked out twice by this guy, he's a bit more than a boogeyman now. He's really your worst nightmare. He's followed you to another sport. You've kind of diminished him, and he's come and finished you again, Joe, again. Dethroned you at middleweight.
Yeah, and when you were on the verge of getting into the Anderson Silva territory, which, you know, as Kamaru Usman can testify with the GSP category, he's just never going to get there now. He's never going to be on Anderson Silva's level, and in terms of legacy. You know, and maybe these guys shouldn't fight like that anyway. They shouldn't be thinking about that. They should be going fight to fight.
No, but we know, Joe, a second loss here, and it kind of just changes the whole narrative on what Adesanya's done, what he did in the UFC. Like you said, maybe actually Pereira, he's the main character, and Adesanya was just a footnote, a placeholder until the better man came along. And a second win would certainly confirm that. Imagine Adesanya marching forward, grabbing at Pereira's hands and getting knocked out.
I mean, it's plausible.
It's very plausible, and I just don't think Adesanya will be able to come forward. I think he's going to fall back into the counter-striker position in which he's so comfortable, so effective defensively, and it's hard for me to not see the same patterns emerging that we saw in the first fight. Adesanya moving out to the side, evading Pereira, who's coming rushing forwards, and Adesanya switching, beautiful, elegant striking, but not throwing enough to stall Pereira.
No.
And Pereira starting to put those hands on him, Joe.
Well, that was the thing that got me as well in my rewatch, was that Pereira was getting into those positions and he was throwing huge shots and he was missing. And, you know, he was missing by quite a bit, but it was just like he had mistimed him. Do you know what I mean? It was like he was like, I'm throwing this and I kind of know I'm about to miss, but I will get you. I will get you eventually. Let's go to that finish itself. Like, there was a bit of like complaining about it, like, oh, he didn't go out, whatever. We didn't need to see him go out. Like, it was 2 shots away and he was going to be slumped on the floor unconscious. I'm
grimacing, Joe.
Why?
I'm not grimacing because of the nature of the shots. I'm grimacing because I'm still not 100% convinced. Like,
you don't think he was done? Bent over at the waist, like losing consciousness.
Weaving. I'm sorry,
no,
Joe.
Bobbing into unconsciousness as Pereira has got 2 fucking grenades in his hand, ready to unload on you. Like, nah, man, that was severe brain damage that was heading Adesanya's way. Not like he's not going to throw like an Imanari roll and get into a leg entanglement to like slow Pereira down. There was going to be a switch knee going in there without him being able to see it. Like, that's what we were heading towards. So I think the controversy about that finish needs to be ignored. Do you think Pereira's going to add anything? Like, I think he's just going to march forward the same way and throw the kicks the same way. I think that was the other thing that really impressed me in my rewatch, was his checking of the leg kicks, and even on the feints, Adesanya was throwing feints and he was checking them. Like, the turn was just so natural. He wasn't even thinking about it, looking at it. That's something that Adesanya, I think, really struggled in this. Was like, this guy is off his level, striking-wise. Maybe not in terms of complexity, but just experience. Do you know what I mean? And, like, pure technique. He's on that level.
Yeah, a very, very fair comment. Just to round back on what you said about whether Pereira will have added something. No, but I do think he will be. But I do think he will have been drilling with Glover, and I think let's also remember that Pereira did have success in the second round with a takedown of his own. Yeah, you know, it got some cheers.
Only the last 10 seconds with no ground and pound, but still.
Joe, it was unanimous. Everyone scored the round for Pereira.
By the way, after getting rocked at the end of the first, he came back and won that round.
And the only round that he did win until finishing Adesanya. So, it's a nice tool to have in there. He got that takedown, Joe. It started off on a single leg, bit clumsy, made it into a bit more of a double leg, and then turned the corner, sat Adesanya down. Didn't matter what happened after that. It's a nice little reminder to have in there. Just keeps Adesanya, keeps him smart, keeps him honest. So I think, both that and also being prepared for clinch exchanges, for a potential body lock from Adesanya.
I wouldn't be surprised if Pereira, by the way, implements more of like a straight jab, particularly if he can get Adesanya up against the fence, a double jab as well to push him back there, rather than just sort of like wading in with single big shots and hooking combos.
It's the speed, Joe. It's the speed. Yeah. It's such a problem. Adesanya is so quick, not just in his retreat and moving out the side, but also in getting the shot in there before. Yeah. I think if you sort of started seeing Pereira come forward with a jab heavy approach, I think that's bait for Adesanya to counter him. Personally.
I'm not even saying jab heavy, but I'm maybe thinking in certain points if he could use it and get him to escape out certain sides, cut off certain angles for him. I don't know, man. It's hard, man. Yeah.
More left hooks.
Fair enough.
Can I hear your prediction?
You want to hear my prediction? I have gone for Tom a Alex Pereira knockout win.
He loves it,
man. I'm sorry, man. He's done it before, twice now in 2 different sports, and he's knocked him out twice. And I'm sorry, man. I think November to April is not enough time to come back from that sort of finish. And I think just in terms of that logistics, and then also just some guys just have your number, man. Like, Tottenham Hotspur will knock you out the Champions League, Man City. Like, there's just not much you can do about it. He just seems to have it, and it gets into this narrative side to me now where I'm like, I think he's kind of the man. Like, I think he's gonna win this. I think he's gonna go up. And if Prohaska isn't the light heavyweight champion and has to face Jamal Hill, Pereira's going to knock Jamal Hill out. So, like, that's
Joe,
just
I love it. I absolutely love this timeline. I'm so happy they signed him. And
I love him. I love him.
I like his aura. Boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
The coming out with the bow and the arrow, and it's just And by the way, him doing that with Adesanya in the cage. Oh man.
Yeah.
Get that WWE production in there now.
Fantastic. Good news for me is that I think, regardless of the result here, that path is open to Pereira for him to go up to light heavyweight.
Oh, he's going up there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
heavyweight.
He's a fantastic addition, and he's got a much more favourable roster. Let's say at light heavyweight. Even off the back of a loss here, which is what I've predicted, I think Adesanya comes out, same game plan, but without getting finished, and gets the job done.
Wow. Fair enough.
Outpoints him, Joe. Classic Counter-Striker display. Elusive. The Adesanya we know. Staying away from all that brawling stuff. Staying away from any forward pressure. And evading him for 25 minutes.
And then what? Pereira moves up to light heavy, and Adesanya follows him up there once Pereira becomes the champion.
It's not over.
It won't be over, bro. You can't lose 3 times, win the 4th one, going like, well, I've won the rivalry. It's just like, you haven't. Like, he would have to beat him again in another title fight in MMA for me to think like they're kind of equal. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would have to be 3-2 within that realm, because otherwise it's just like, and if it's 4-0, bro, like that rivalry's done. Put a bow on it.
In our co-main event, Joe, it's Gilbert Burns, Jorge Masvidal. Now look, the UFC led with this in their countdown footage. It was all about the homegrown hero Jorge Masvidal. We're back in Miami. The big deal, the big show. Now, is Masvidal more than a show? Is he legitimate at welterweight? Can he challenge Gilbert Burns?
Wait, can he? You mean like beat Gilbert Burns?
Yeah, because, Joe,
what does he have to offer Gilbert Burns, basically?
What I'm saying to you here is that the Jorge brand, it's dulled a bit. All right, the heat's come off, but it's still big enough that they lead with it over this amazing rivalry, elite strikers that we've got, middleweight for the title. The UFC lead with their homegrown hero Jorge Masvidal. And a man who's been in title fights, he's been on the losing end a few times now. People have questioned whether he fits into that picture. A win over Gilbert Burns would confirm that he should, and he was right to get those matchups.
Right. I mean, it depends on if you think he will beat Burns, and I think, actually, to be honest, the only way a title fight works for him is the fact that Leon Edwards is the champion. Like, if he beat Burns and Shavkat was the champion, like, you'd be like, all right, well, he's just ruined Burns' chance of getting a title shot. He's not won one himself. So there's that side of it. There's an interesting narrative thing that I want to pick up on, which is Masvidal's kind of hinted that if he loses this, he might retire. Are you picking up on that this might actually just be his final fight, actually win or lose, perhaps?
It's a strange fight to bow out on, and that's kind of why I led with my opening question there, Joe, because I think, although we have kind of laughed and criticised the UFC matching up Jorge Masvidal with legitimate title-holding champions, a man who, some people say has just had a flash in the pan, a man some people say was one flying knee away from taking out the shopping carts. Certainly that lit the touch paper on Jorge Masvidal. And I just wonder, when you look at Jorge, he's taken this fight. Nobody fancies him here. The odds makers certainly don't. They've got Gilbert Burns to win. He's an overwhelming favourite, minus 490. And yet this could be Jorge's last fight. That tells me that he genuinely believes that he deserves to be there, that he could have beaten Usman. That's why he wanted a second matchup with him. Could have beaten Colby. That's why he took that fight. And can beat Gilbert Burns.
Yeah, I mean, what he has to offer Burns is that Masvidal has got really good grappling defense. It's near enough impossible to sub. I mean, he had Damian Maia on his back, and it was not phased. Was not phased at all. And he got damage off in those fights. He got he's damaged these opponents. The thing is that we're talking about a man who's 37 years old at welterweight, who's got a lot of miles on the clock, who's probably got a lot of injuries, who it feels like maybe is acknowledging that, time is not on his side now when it comes to his fighting career. Does he have okay, so we know he's got the grappling defense. You'd say he was a better striker than Burns, but he doesn't have that sort of... I feel like he doesn't have that pop anymore that Burns does.
Let me just give you a few facts about these two fighters.
Yeah.
Jorge Masvidal has landed more significant strikes, absorbed less significant strikes, has a higher significant strike defense, a higher takedown defense, a higher knockdown average than Gilbert Burns.
Yeah, but that's also due to the fact that he has so many more fights than Gilbert Burns as well. I mean...
No, I'm not talking cumulative numbers. I mean, on a fight-by-fight basis.
Right.
Yeah.
Just pure numbers-wise.
Pure numbers-wise. Not in absolute terms. He lands more, absorbs less, has a better striking defense, has more knockdowns.
And yet, why are me and you not convinced?
Well, we're not convinced because this is a man who's been on a long skid, but he's been on a long skid because he's been fighting the absolute best that there is. And
he's facing Gilbert Burns now, a man who some people could make a claim he beat Chimaev. I'm not one of those people. I think he lost to Chimaev, who has gone out there, has just smoked Neil Magny, who smushed Wonderboy into the ground as well. Rocked Usman in their title fight. Did more damage to Usman than either Masvidal or Covington did, up until Leon Edwards, and then before that had basically rid us of Tyron Woodley as a contender at all in the UFC. He's got really dominant wins. His wins are super dominant. I feel like there's not much argument to be had about them. And again, I know I fixate on the age thing a bit too much recently, but I think there is something to be thought about, because think about this, is that Tyron Woodley is the oldest welterweight champion in terms of the age that they won it. He was 34, and Burns, Covington, Masvidal, Usman are all past that age, and I don't see any of them winning the title this time soon, and I don't know, man, it does feel like a bit of a cashing in on what's left of Masvidal as a draw, and could be a good name for Burns to add. I know you disagree with this.
Well, it's a great name for Burns to add, and if Burns can win this fight, then I've got him, I'm perfectly happy with him challenging for the belt. I just don't see how it makes sense for Masvidal unless he genuinely believes that he belongs in there.
No, he thinks he's going to win this fight and then get the Leon Edwards fight. And by the way, this goes into a bigger thing, but I think Dana White's quite a bad promoter. You know, I don't book fights on Saturday unless it's Colby Covington against Leon Edwards for some reason because he weighed in. You know, by which reckoning, why isn't Pavlovich the next contender for the heavyweight title? And then also, Edwards just beat Usman, and then what you should be saying is like, wow, that fight in Miami means a lot more now, doesn't it? You know, get people excited. Who's Edwards going to face next? Is it Burns or Masvidal? You know, you kind of want Masvidal because of their history.
I mean, Joe, come on. Let's say that Masvidal returns to that form he found in 2019. Darren Till knocked out in London. Ben Askren with the flying knee, and then obviously put the work on Nate Diaz in New York to win the BMF title.
Yeah.
Let's say he puts on a performance of that caliber.
Yeah.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah, of course. Him versus
I'm
Leon
ready.
are the fight to make, yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm kind of giving away a little bit how I feel about this fight. I feel like Masvidal's being overlooked a little bit too much.
Yeah, for sure.
A little bit too much. I feel like the first fight with Usman, he gave a really good account of himself.
Yes, all things
considering the
considered,
matchup.
Yeah.
And obviously the second was a lot more definitive.
Hold on. Do you remember your message to me before Masvidal got knocked out by Usman? Do you remember your message? You said Masvidal's getting into this fight. He's really starting to find his groove. I think he's going to cause Usman some problems in this fight. And then, you know, land of wind and ghosts for you.
Nobody expected Kamaru Usman to land of such a beautiful shot. Nobody.
No.
And yeah, I felt like it wasn't outrageous to me that he stepped in there with Usman for a second time. There were questions. I was curious.
I think he earned it though by taking that first one on such short notice.
Absolutely, and giving a good account of himself. The Colby one, that was more definitive. But it's a terrible matchup for him. And Burns, he doesn't have the same pressure wrestling style that Colby does. He's not gonna outwork you cardio wise.
No, he won't spam takedowns in the same way that Covington will, but he will still land them. He'll still land takedowns. He's got really good control time as well. But, you know, I don't know, man. I've seen Burns recently defeat guys who are, you know, maybe just a step below Masvidal in terms of their stature. Although Wonderboy proved perhaps he still does have something to offer against when he faced Kevin Holland. But you know, we're talking about a guy who takes these guys down and then they stay down. You know, they don't get up once Burns takes them down because his grappling knowledge is so far ahead of them. Man, I think if what I'll be interested to see actually is Masvidal going to throw those mid kicks, the body kicks, because he kept doing it against Covington and Usman, almost like baiting them. Was he setting up a head kick there? What was he setting up in those? Or is he just going to stick to the boxing? Because I think if he sticks to a pure boxing style, I think he'll have a lot more success.
Yeah, I feel like that is a product of, again, Masvidal's confidence in his jiu-jitsu and his takedown defense. I think Masvidal really believes he can hang down there and actually get back up. The first thing he said after the Covington fight is he was going to get back in the gym and he's going to practice wrestling some more. You know, I do think he's a competitor. I think he is being overlooked, though. Of course, Joe, you know, I have picked Gilbert Burns to win this fight. I cannot deny gravity.
Yeah.
But I'd like to tease the fact that maybe gravity can be turned upside down once in a while.
What method?
I expect a decision victory. Nobody's really been finishing Masvidal outside of that freak shot. I think you are inclined to another prediction like last time about Gaethje. And I worry for you, Joe. I worry that you've been made a fool out of again, and you will say that Masvidal is going to fall off totally in this fight.
No, I do predict a Gilbert Burns win by decision, but it's more out of I just don't. I think we need to acknowledge that 2019 of Masvidal was an incredible moment, but you also have to factor in that one of the wins was Darren Till, a man with no knees. The most freakish of knockout wins, incredible game planning, superbly pulled off against a man with no hip, and then an absolute one-sided beating of Nate Diaz for 3 rounds. It's part of me thinks that doesn't quite hold up then once he actually gets to face the top of the division. You know, once you actually break through and it's just like, all right, you're facing these guys now. What have you got? You're not the champion? Oh, well, not the end of the world. So, yeah, Burns by decision.
Now, just to clarify, that is a takedown heavy approach. Bit of ground and pound, trying to land some submissions.
Yeah, to mass boos from the audience.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
that's what we're going to get.
Right, let me just stop you just briefly. Last note on this. Burns knows he needs more than that. He knows he has to finish Jorge Masvidal. He knows what a knockout will do.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's not enough to control Masvidal on the mat for 15 minutes.
If he goes in there and he smokes Masvidal inside a round, you'd say
he's up.
Number one contender.
Yeah. I don't think anyone would knock him for that. I mean, Gilbert Burns is a kind of, he's a true fan favorite, as in, if you know your eggs.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, Joe, it just does nothing for him if he just sits on Masvidal and kind of works a few subs, gets the odd elbow off. I'm not booking you to fight Leon Rocky Edwards. Come on, son. He knows he needs a finish, and I just think that could create some openings for Masvidal. That's not write him off.
I hadn't thought about that in terms of like marketing as well for Burns.
He knows. He knows. He's been out on record. He knows he needs to finish and finish emphatically.
I mean, he will want to do that regardless. Surely, like he'll want to put on like the biggest statement possible.
No, but it's also like that he wants a knockout on the feet, Joe. He's had it before. Tastes good. He's
got the hands as well. He's got the hands for it.
Well, Damian Maia will tell you about that.
Right. Speaking of Masvidal, let's talk about mini Masvidal. Adrian Yanez is back against Rob Font. Now, Tom, I'm going to ask you a question. When did Rob Font join the UFC? What year?
I'm going to go for 2016.
Rob Font has been fighting in the UFC, Tom, since the year 2014. And I think that kind of says a lot in that he's just kind of been about this background periphery figure who then got a really favourable matchup at a great time of Marlon Moraes post getting murked by everyone. And then, by the way, Moraes recently lost this past weekend against Brendan Loughnane in PFL. TKO via leg kicks for Moraes now. Hang him up, mate. But Rob Font smushed Moraes inside a round and then defeated a equally washed, or nearly as equally washed, Cody Garbrandt. And then he got to face Jose Aldo and got mushed into the ground. And then Chito Vera, again, complete domination. Now, Tom, out of those last 10 rounds he's fought, he has been badly hurt in 7 of those rounds. And I think there was a clear moment of like, Rob Font is not of top 5 level. He can hang in that 6 to 15 range, depending on what fights he wins. And now he faces Adrian Yanez, who is a tremendous striker, in my humble opinion, who takes a bit of damage to get his reads. Rob Font will be dishing out the damage from that jab, I think that'll be fair to say, with a bit of body work. Yanez has said, I'm expecting him to try and take me down. Interesting from Yanez. Interesting analysis. Tom, what do you think Yanez has that will cause Rob Font problems?
Well, we know the diversity of striking is a big weapon for Yanez, and we also know that like an intense fight, i.e. one that Font can't lead the dance with the jab and kind of point score is where he starts to fall apart. The thing is, Yanez brings that.
Yeah,
he brings that. Right, he's ready to go to war, and you're not going to keep him at bay with a simple jab that Rob Font possesses. So I think actually it's a pretty bad matchup for Font. My question would be more, what does Rob Font have for Adrian Yanez? That's how I'm looking at this fight.
That's interesting. I think if Font is going to get anything going, I think he needs to be a front runner in the beginning of each round. Because he knows that Yanez is going to take a moment and then he's going to set himself and he's going to go, particularly with that jab. Yanez is just going to, when you throw the jab, you open yourself up for leg kicks, because you're going to be committed to that front foot and you're going to be off balance from a leg kick. And then also, when you throw the jab, if he can throw a big straight over the top of that, he could badly hurt Font. And Yanez has that ability. Like, he really puts the work on people. And that's what I can see happening in this fight. For Font, though, is body kicks. Body kicks is the thing I think he needs to throw in there. And then straight kicks to the body as well. If he can throw kicks from either the rear or front leg to the body, I think that would be a good progressive step for him to cause Yanez problems.
Well, he does favour the body, Rob Font. You see that in his stats accumulated to date. 18% to the body, only 8% to the leg. The rest, of course, going to the head with that jab. Now, Yanez is more balanced. 14% of his strikes are going to the body and 14% are going to the leg. So you might get what you want from Font.
Okay, fair enough. But I've picked Adrian Yanez to win this fight by decision, Tom. Because even though Font gets rocked, he does have a really good ability to cling on to fights. Like, he'll still, like, I don't know, make it an awkward position for you. Yeah, I'll say that for Font. He is a tough, durable man, but I think Yanez has too much. I think he has too many, like, speedy combinations. Hooks off the lead hands, I should say, as well for Yanez. So Adrian Yanez by decision for me.
Well, I mean, up until the Davy Grant fight, which was Yanez's penultimate fight, he's looked nothing short of phenomenal. Randy Costa, he ran with him for the first round, the fight prior to that, but fell away very quickly in the second. Yanez he's just delivered some great highlights already. Of course, last time out over Tony Kelly, front of the Texas crowd, packed him off, fighter removed.
Gave him the double birds. Off you pop, pal. And,
absolutely.
No more of you. Yeah, and I think this is going to be a great breakout moment for Yanez. I think he'll pop the crowd. You know. They'll think, is this Jorge Masvidal from 2015?
Yeah, people are ready to get behind him. And as you say, Font has already fallen away. He's been found out. So, big moment for Yanez, because we will acknowledge that Font is a step up from Tony Kelly.
Yeah, for sure. Can I ask you something about a bit of bantamweight matchmaking? Oh, by the way, what was your choice? I don't know if you...
I matched you up, Joe. It's a Yanez decision for me.
Can I ask you about the matchmaking that they're trying to get going at bantamweight of making Umar Nurmagomedov versus Merab Dvalishvili?
Love it.
See, I actually really love this actually in a matchmaking sense, because if you're unwilling to fight the champ, then you're not fighting a top contender. Like, all right, then you're going to fight this guy, and if you beat this guy, good for you, and then you've solidified the case. And
is there anything more lame than holding up the division as a contender?
It's really lame. It's really, really lame. Like, I mean, you know, I feel like there's a weird thing going on with Sterling as well, of like, should Sterling hold on to the division after the Cejudo fight? Should he move on? And if he's a real pal, would he give Merab the Sean O'Malley fight to be like, here, listen, mate, I'm giving this to you. You go out there and smash this, brother.
That would be fair payment for the work that Merab has done for Aljamain. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. Can I tell you why I am in favour of Umar Nurmagomedov fighting Merab Dvalishvili?
Can I guess, is it because you think Umar will win?
It's, Joe, somewhere on this planet, I'm ready to search far and wide for a man to beat Merab. Anybody that can do it, I want it. And yes, Umar could do it. Match him up in the wrestling department and beat him in the striking department. That is what I pray for. I go to bed thinking of that. I need this to be stopped. No more Merab.
Do you hate Merab the most?
It's become like that. You can't beat Jose Aldo and Petr Yan.
And refuse to fight for the title.
Well, it's the whole package, Joe. It's the whole package. It's also the flagrant abuse of EPO. You know, Joe. Other people need to use EPO, and Merab's taken it all. He's loaded, but he's got the whole supply. He's got the whole warehouse out there. Yeah. It's not right.
No, it's not right.
Like Usman, he could have done with some EPO in his last fight.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, the CEO of EPO, he was clearly not anymore.
Merab's taken it all, Joe, and I want it stopped.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty mad. It's a pretty mad situation that we've got happening at bantamweight, and it's the best division, and it's been somewhat tarnished Anyway, let's talk about something which is not tarnished. Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, in the welterweight division. This is excellent matchmaking. Just pure and simple, excellent matchmaking. Do you like to bang? I like to bang. Well, let's bang. Yeah? That's me on Tinder circa 2013. Obviously didn't go very well for me, but this will go very well. Holland versus Ponzinibbio. Tom, I ask for your loin prediction occasionally. What is your loin saying about this fight?
Joe, I expect violence. I expect lots of violence, and I expect one man to take the brunt of that violence, and for the first time in his career, succumb.
Really?
Yeah. I'm pulling a Joe Greenwood.
Yeah.
So, for those...
What's the definition on Urban Dictionary of pulling a Joe Greenwood?
So pulling a Joe Greenwood is to write off Justin, all violence, all fun Gaethje against the new breed physique, for him to fall off the wagon and be totally vanquished, only for Gaethje to pull out a vintage display.
What was your prediction for that fight, by the way, of Fiziev versus Gaethje?
Even matchup. Perhaps 2 rounds going to Fiziev and Gaethje winning it on the stop shots.
Okay, fair enough. Go on.
Joe, I'm predicting that Kevin Holland's going to put a whooping on Ponzinibbio.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, same. Yeah,
no, but I'm talking about a proper whooping. I'm talking about...
elbows, knees. He's gonna rip him to the body. He's gonna cut him up. Yeah. Long straight shots.
He's going to see those giant whooping hooks come in, and he's going to love it. He's so fast. He's very slick. Easy work for Kevin Holland.
Do you know what I was thinking of is the Holland-Buckley fight where, remember the knockdown that Holland got where he licked his hand first and then he hit him with a right straight with the hand that he licked? And I was just like, man, that is slick stuff to be doing that. Yeah, I think that Morono fight was a blessing and a curse for Ponzinibbio. Got the win, but he was outworked by a guy who came in on short notice, and he had to have the Leon Rocky Edwards, you got to pull this out the fire speech for Alex Morono. That was... And the Baeza fight, that was good from Ponzinibbio, but again, it's a guy who's no longer fighting, going life and death, and Holland caused Wonderboy problems in that first round.
Hold on.
Yeah, go on.
Let's not ignore the other recent fights on Ponzinibbio's record. Lost a split decision to Pereira.
Oh, yeah.
Lost a split decision to Jeff Neal.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, he's hanging in there with these boys,
No, yeah, he is. But I think Holland's going to mush him into the ground, and I'm predicting a Kevin Holland knockout win.
I just think it's delicious, tantalising. A plodding guy who marches forward and throws
straight lines,
big looping hooks, and has slowed down a hell of a lot.
And he's got... What's the reach disadvantage in this fight? Sorry, my voice is slightly gone.
Kevin Holland has got UFC leading reach, 81 inches at middleweight. Ponzinibbio, I'm not sure, but I am
73.
Sure considerably. That's outrageous. That's a hurdle.
That is a hurting indeed. Yeah, Kevin Holland by knockout for me.
Yeah, I picked a Kevin Holland knockout.
Now let's talk about Raul Rosas Jr. is back, the youngster. He's facing Christian Rodriguez. Opening the main card, Bantamweight matchup here. Tom, should Rosas Jr. be in the UFC?
Joe, it's a big spot they've given him here. So they certainly think he should be. They're running with it. I'm really surprised to see him opening a pay-per-view. I think that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now, you look at Mohamed Bakayev.
Yeah.
Equally young man who's out there to be the youngest champ. He's beaten 3, 4, I think 5 guys now in the UFC. Can't get 4 guys now. And finished them.
Yeah.
Can't get a whiff of the pay-per-view. He's deep down on the prelims. Sometimes still you see him in the early prelims, already ranked at flyweight.
Yeah.
And yet here we have Raul Rosas Jr., second fight in the UFC, first fight dutifully crushed the can. And here he is on the main card in Miami. I don't know, Joe. I got a feeling that you're against this.
I'm a little bit against it. Do you know what, man? I think like a featured prelim slot would be good for Rosas Jr. You know, we're talking about pay-per-view main card, and you got like Kelvin Gastelum versus Chris Curtis like headlining the prelims. Like, that's a good fight, man. That's a really good fight. And like, I'm watching this 18-year-old. Like, I don't know, man. Like, there's a bigger issue going on with the UFC that we can get into another day, but like, it should be the best fighting the best. And am I about to see the best fight the best? Am I watching a kid being given a really big spot? Because, you know, the other thing with him is that like, he's clearly very talented. But is he like driving some audience numbers that we don't see, like within like the Hispanic Mexican community that we're just not picking up on? No, really though, he comes out, you know, people popped for him.
It's like hold on, I'm talking brother, big in Kazakhstan, right? We know that.
Yeah.
Raul Rosas Jr. I think it might be TikTok. It must be his age, because it's not reaching me. I don't understand, but the UFC does. You know, they have been growing their audience considerably. They've gone from strength to strength, at least in terms of engagement. So yeah, here we have him, Raul Rosas. Is there something more than his age that you can get excited about?
Yeah, there's some skill stuff there. I mean, he's got nice finishing ability from the back, as we saw in his last fight. You know, it's too nebulous though to really say much about him. And the same for Christian Rodriguez. You know, he had a nice win in the UFC. What was it, last year? Again, winning by sub. You know, he's 1-1 in the UFC. The Anaconda choke, which he got from actually being taken down up against the cage. It was a nice finish. But like, you know, these, I don't know, man. Like, I just think that this feels like a bit of a down point on the card for me. You know, this should be a spot for like, this is you know, actually Holland Ponzinibbio should be like opening the cards. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're going to get you so hyped up. And you're going to watch this teenager grapple this other guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I picked Rosas to win by submission, by the way. Like, I just don't, I don't know. I'm just not really feeling it just yet. Maybe he'll come on, he'll cut some sick promo, but yeah, I don't know. I need to see a little bit more before I can really get into this guy.
Joe, he did have a Mexican hat on him after the fight last time.
That's cool. Good for him. I still prefer Shavkat's big sort of, whatever that is, that animal that he's murdered to put on his head. Yeah.
Hashtag Shavkat Rachmanov for our Kazakhstani audience.
Shout out to Shavkat.
Kazakh audience.
And to our Kazakhs, yes. If you want to fly us out to Kazakhstan, by the way, Kazakhstan government will happily come out there. We'll hang out with Shavkat.
We'll shill for you.
We love gas. We love gas. We love oil. You know. What else do we like? What else do Kazakhs have?
Horses,
mountains?
Joe. Big on them.
Yeah, mountains.
No, I like them too. Yeah.
We like hiking.
We'll
go hiking in Kazakhstan with Shavkat Rachmanov. Anyway. Hopefully that wasn't too transparent. But Tom, what was your prediction for this fight?
I picked Rosas Jr. by decision. I got to be honest, I'm a bit ignorant as to Christian Rodriguez's skill set.
He's got good grappling.
Joe, tells you a lot. I wasn't really inclined to look into it. I feel the same as you. Yeah, look, I'll be honest with you. It's not resonating with me, and it's part of the reason I marked this card down. I agree. Shouldn't be on the main card, and we're missing out on my featured prelim. Also, the UFC's featured prelim. You got Kelvin Gastelum fighting Chris Curtis.
Oh,
great boxers, strikers. I want to bring it. Kelvin surely has a point to prove, and Curtis has been bubbling away now at middleweight. Exciting fight, Joe.
Really exciting. I'm loving this. I mean, I think thing is, Curtis, I think he could get caught into a rhythm of like waiting and just picking single shots, because Curtis is one of these guys where he'll throw the combinations once the avalanche has started. Once he's caught you, like the Phil Hawes fight, then the storm comes. But I don't know if I can see him landing that level of shot on Gastelum where it's going to rock him to the point where he can start to unload. And
Gastelum,
he's got those long loopy hands. What's that?
Like Rock Kelvin Gastelum. Are you mad? Can that be done?
I think Whittaker did it briefly. Remember that 1-2 high kick combo he always throws? I think he rocked him with that. And it took Adesanya 24 minutes of basically murdering him or attempting to murder him before Gastelum's body gave up on him. You know, it takes a lot to beat this man, but he's taken a lot of damage, man. He's taken a lot of damage. But I could see Curtis falling into the trap here, man. I could see him falling into this and, you know, Gastelum catching him with a couple slick combos. Does have good hands, Gastelum, still.
Yeah, and we can't deny, what happens to Chris Curtis against Jack Hermansson.
Yeah.
Really, really showed how one-dimensional Chris Curtis striking can be if he's not given the kind of opponent that will trade with him. An opponent that throws kicks and then moves was just far too much for him.
Yeah.
Tragically then knocked out Joaquin Buckley last time out back in December. Credit to him for that, though. It's good for him that he's not going to fight a guy who kicks and moves. Unfortunately, Kelvin Gastelum, those hands are slick. They are fast. He's a great boxer. Can bob and weave with the best of them. I like Gastelum here in this fight. I think you'll see some combinations from him, and I think you'll see single shots, as you say, from Curtis, without any openings. I think you'll see Curtis's hands bouncing off that big square noggin, and Gastelum just smiling back at him and uncorking some big hands. So I got Gastelum to win this fight. Kind of get back on track a little bit.
Excellent. Now, listeners, we'll go through the rest of the prelims next week. We'll break those down further after we've actually seen them, because I've got to say the rest of these prelims are not doing it for me, Tom. I've got to say. But should we do the news? Should we do the news quickly, or there's big news. We should go into it. Endeavour, who owns the UFC, bought the UFC for $4 billion in 2017. Has now bought 51% share of the WWE, which, funnily enough, Tom, was Vince McMahon's share, for $8 billion. And they're combining the two companies to make one entity that they value at about $24 billion, and they will float it on the stock exchange for people to invest into. A very interesting turn of events, I must say. One that I did not expect to see, frankly, because I never thought I would see the Vince McMahon actually sold the WWE, but he has done it. There was talk of the Saudis buying it before. It has been confirmed that Vince will still run WWE in the same way that Dana does. The main man behind this, though, is one Mr. Nick Khan, who was a big agent to the sports stars in the past, who was involved in actually getting the negotiations for Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather over the line and done, and has been a big part of the WWE for the last few years in getting massive TV deals and massive site fee deals from Saudi Arabia to the tune of $50 million per event, 4 events a year, $200 million in the pocket of the WWE every single year. Tom, you've read this news. What do you think about this? Just more of an MMA fan than you are a pro wrestling fan. In fact, you're not a pro wrestling fan, not a hater of pro wrestling like some, but not really a fan of it. What's the thing that sort of stands out to you?
Well, I of course speak purely as a fan of the suffering fan of the UFC, and a huge fan of MMA, and that by association, its leading promotion. I have concerns, Joe.
Yeah.
I have concerns.
But what are the concerns?
Well, I don't know what it means. And it seems like the lines will become further blurred between the two. And I'm struggling to see what the upside is for fans of MMA.
Okay. There's a few things at play here. There's a large crossover between pro wrestling and MMA fans. MMA has a long lineage history with pro wrestling, with guys who have transitioned between the sports, most notably guys like Brock Lesnar, Ronda Rousey, even back in the 90s, Ken Shamrock, Dan Severn. You know, and then over in Japan, in terms of the promotional side of things, how Pride presented itself, pro wrestling was a big part of that. You know, and you see how guys' entrances were, particularly like Kazushi Sakuraba. Yeah, you know, you had these sort of tinges of it. I mean, there's famous stories in Pride of like Yuji Nagata. This didn't find Pride, but Yuji Nagata of Pro Wrestling for New Japan, who was their big star. Oh, you're going to have an MMA fight to prove you're legit, and your first fight's against Crow Cop, loses. You got to prove yourself again, goes in there and fights Fedor, loses, and then loses a big push in pro wrestling. I think that there is the worry of, you know, I don't want to use the word fake for pro wrestling, but of like a worked sport being linked with a non-worked sport, of what that would do for the image.
Well, a sport that has been kind of worked and pulled around with the shenanigans we've seen with the wrestling, with the prize fighters, with the people fighting outside of weight classes, the call-outs of boxers.
James Krause, the whole James Krause betting issue as well.
Absolutely.
Like, that's a massive issue that we're talking about, and we're now going to combine with the WWE, which is, you know, the market leader in pro wrestling in the same way that the UFC is the market leader in MMA. I think that this is going to be the start of... Basically, WWE has always actually been quite a forward-thinking promotion. They were the first to start their own streaming service. They set the price at $9.99 and everyone else followed, basically. $9.99 for everything. Those days are done. You know, WWE sold off their streaming rights to Peacock in America, and you pay a bit extra now for their big pay-per-views in the same way that UFC do with ESPN+. I think what you're going to start seeing is big companies with their streaming services hoovering up IP and content so that you can then get it all in one place. These all little streaming services, they're all going to fall away and they're all going to be merged into these bigger ones. And do you know what the biggest selling thing in television is still to this day? Is live sports. Live sports is king. You get the biggest deals is in live sports. And UFC and WWE, a combined package of live sports. You know, you can kind of control one, you can massively control the other. You know, it's tantalizing for people, for these big companies, for ESPN. There's talk that DAZN want to get into the UFC business and buy the global rights to show the UFC. You know, we're getting into the next stage of streaming and of television rights deals. And the WWE and the UFC's television rights deals are coming up soon, and this is going to be a big part. This is going to be a big deal. Nick Khan is involved now, and that man is, he's a savage bloke, I must say. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. We're at the nebulous stages, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I can certainly see the business sense, Joe, but I've got to say you're not really put my fears aside, what it means for the legitimacy of the sport. I'm still not seeing what it brings me as a
cross-promotion in terms for the UFC, in terms of business. I think what you could...
You mean I might finally get to watch Brock Lesnar versus John Jones?
Because Matt Riddle might come back, you know.
10 years too late, Joe.
The other thing I was thinking was that maybe you could have events where a stadium show where on the Saturday night you get the UFC and on the Sunday night you get the WWE in the same stadium, because WWE do these huge stadium shows, and the UFC have kind of like for years rejected that. You know, they do it occasionally, mostly in Australia, but you know, Raiders Stadium, SummerSlam on the Sunday night, UFC on the Saturday night, McGregor versus Chandler on the Saturday. Come on, man, that sells itself, doesn't it? Like, that's what you'll see. You'll just see cross promotion. You know, it's a weird thing as well, because you had the sports betting issue with the UFC, and WWE is really pushing that as well, like betting on WWE, which I know again sounds bizarre, but you can do it, and you have been able to do it for years. Yeah, there's a lot more at play here that we can go into at later dates. But in terms of this nebulous stage, those are my first original thoughts.
Sounds like you're excited, Joe.
I'm intrigued. I'm slightly depressed as well, because like Endeavour have basically said to Dana, you can slap your wife and still have your job and it'll be fine. And Vince had the rape allegation stuff that came out where he had to pay hush money to these women to not go to court and take it further, and paid off in millions and millions of dollars to make sure that it didn't go to court. So basically they've got their safety net of Endeavour, who are not going to sack them. Vince can keep doing as he does, keep running WWE, and that's it, man. Like that's what we're going to see. I think the TV deals are going to be the main thing.
Well, it sounds like we'll be revisiting this all at a later date.
I think throughout the year we'll keep hearing more and more. Listeners, thank you so much for joining us. You can contact us at holdonbrother69@gmail.com, and we will be back next week to review this card, UFC 287. We're going to quickly go through our picks again. Raul Rosas Jr. versus Christian Rodriguez. We both picked Rosas. I picked a submission. Tom picked a decision. Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. We both picked a Kevin Holland knockout. Rob Font versus Adrian Yanez. We both picked Adrian Yanez by decision. Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal. Both picked Gilbert Burns by decision. And in the main event for the middleweight title, Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya 2/4. I picked an Alex Pereira knockout.
Yeah, whereas I went with trusty Adesanya and a decision. It all comes down to that, Joe. We'll find out this weekend. Look forward to it.
How likely do you think a Pereira decision win is?
The odds makers don't favour it, I'll tell you that. Though, I will say, one stat I didn't relay to you, the last little bit for the listeners here, those die-hard fans who are still clinging on, Pereira landed more significant strikes. Now, admittedly, 10 or so of those were the concussive blows that won the fight.
Yes.
But he did outland Adesanya in terms of significant strikes in the first fight. So, perhaps there is room for him to do that. But Adesanya, for me, will get it done this Saturday.
Excellent. Listeners, we'll be back next week to review this card. Can't wait for you to join us, Tom, and I can't wait to talk to you again next week.
God bless Kazakhstan and goodbye.
Yes, goodbye, listeners.